Hello there. Thank you so much for joining us. This is News Channel Nebraska. My name's Eric McKay. Let's take a look at our top headlines today. A portable heater being blamed for a fire that displaced a Platte County family overnight. It happened at a residence about 3 miles northwest of Columbus early Wednesday. Columbus fire officials say the blaze drew mutual response from volunteers out of Platte Center and Monroe. No one was hurt, but the Red Cross was called in to assist the family who was displaced. Fire officials say a space heater placed too closely to combustible materials caused the fire. The Madison County Sheriff's Office says an inmate at their jail has passed away. Authorities say 62-year-old David Perrin found unconscious and unresponsive Wednesday morning. Jail staff started CPR and life-saving measures and transferred him to a local hospital where he was pronounced dead. Authorities investigating the cause of Perrin's death. Authorities in Lincoln, meanwhile, asking for assistance in identifying the woman in this video. Police say an incident happened December 8th near Northwest 6th Street and Laramie Trail. A neighbor had called police saying they saw this woman walking away from the residence where a small fire had been started. Lincoln Fire and Rescue were sent to the scene. They're currently working with investigators on the case. Anyone with any information is asked to contact Lincoln Crime Stoppers. A man accused of murder now facing an allegation that he punched a fellow inmate. The state has charged 26-year-old Romeo Chambers with assault by a confined person. In court documents, authorities say security video at the Buffalo County Jail in Kearney captured Chambers punching another inmate in the face. The documents say Chambers was having a conversation with the inmate in the day room when he became agitated, took off his shirt, and assaulted the other man. Chambers is already in jail on suspicion of second-degree murder and 6 other charges in connection to the 2022 shooting death of Jared Shinpaw. Former director of a Western Nebraska senior center being accused of financial impropriety. State Auditor Mike Foley issued a report Wednesday on the Keith County Senior Center in Ogallala. Foley says his investigation found that former director Jeannie Herman overpaid herself over the course of 2 years. Foley says the audit shows Herman paid herself over $13,000 more than what she should have been paid and took improper sick and vacation leave. Foley says he's reported his findings to the State Patrol, the Keith County Attorney, and the State Attorney General for a possible criminal investigation. In national news today, House Speaker Mike Johnson says a bipartisan border deal is officially dead. That's according to Republicans who attended a meeting with him yesterday. Johnson addressing the matter on Wednesday. Amy Kiley has more on the politics surrounding the decision.
I have talked to former President Trump about this issue at length, and he understands that. He understands that we have a responsibility to do here.
Speaker Mike Johnson is declaring a bipartisan border deal dead, according to House Republicans. Former President Donald Trump wants to kill the plan. GOP Senator James Lankford has been negotiating with Senate Democrats. That has Republican leaders feeling stuck, according to GOP Senator John Cornyn.
We ought to do everything we can to try and fix it. And if we can't get there, fine. But if we don't try, then shame on us.
Some Republicans are falling in line with Trump. They refuse to support any border legislation that doesn't meet all their demands. That's a tall order in a divided Congress.
Bipartisanship is the only way that action on the border is going to happen.
Republicans say President Joe Biden should use more executive actions to address immigration.
Our country is experiencing a full-fledged invasion with illegal immigrants encouraged by Joe Biden's open border policies.
Biden says he's done all he can without Congress, but he says the day he can sign a bipartisan bill letting him close the border, he will shut it down. I'm Amy Kiley reporting.
The Nebraska Department of Environment and Energy is addressing concerns from the community over water safety after an incident this month at a beef processing plant in Grand Island. State officials attended Tuesday's Hall County Commissioners meeting to address the concerns over JBS and their history with environmental issues. This after JBS said an ongoing release of wastewater from their facility happened on January 6th. Officials say JBS estimates about 5 million gallons of wastewater were discharged into the Wood River. Well, state officials took water samples. They haven't received the results yet, but say they are still investigating and have submitted a letter of noncompliance, accusing JBS of 7 violations. JBS has until February 15th to write a remediation plan. Now, officials say there's no imminent danger for private wells since the damage was done on a surface level, but they're still suggesting residents test their wells on an annual basis.
So if it's in the groundwater at 10 to 15 feet at the surface, it still has to make it to the 75 to 100 feet where the intake the well is. So there are lots of, again, Ron, test your well.
In a statement, JBS said it's working to address potential impacts, saying they've been in close contact with the state. Staying in central Nebraska, a week after a Hamilton County community told residents to boil their water, that advisory's been lifted. The village of Hampton notified its residents of the change on Tuesday. In a statement, village officials said the problem that necessitated the boil notice has been corrected. Samples have tested negative for total coliform and E. coli bacteria. The advisory was issued after the village's water system lost pressure because of a water main break. Maintenance crews have since fixed that water main. Major hotel chains in the state will have to make mandatory fees more transparent to customers after a series of settlements with State Attorney General Mike Hilgers. Hilgers Tuesday reached a settlement with Hilton, forcing the chain to disclose the total price of a hotel stay. That follows similar settlements with Marriott, Omni, and Choice last fall. Hilgers' office said in a statement Tuesday that it will also get $300,000 from Hilton for attorney fees and costs. The settlement's part of a multi-year investigation into a practice known as price dripping. That's where many hotel chains and online travel agencies gradually disclose the fees to consumers as they proceed through the booking process. A bill in the state legislature could provide more protections to journalists on college and high school campuses in Nebraska. Luke Stera has what you need to know.
A bill put forward in the Nebraska legislature will provide concrete definitions and terms to student journalists on high school and college campuses across the state of Nebraska. LB 1071 was put forward by Senator George Dungan and will call school-sponsored media public forums. The changes would take place for college and high school student media and will provide student journalists protections to their freedom of speech. Under the new bill, media advisors for the students will also have protections from administration retaliation. Advisors will also not be prevented from teaching English and journalism to students. The bill does not allow student journalists to write information that is libelous, an invasion of privacy, and goes away from journalistic ethical standards. In 2021, a similar bill was put forward by Senator Adam Morfeld, which sparked debate but ultimately was indefinitely postponed. Representatives from the Northern Plains Collegiate Media Association, high school journalism programs, and the ACLU all gave a testimony at that time. In 2022, Grand Island Northwest administrators shut down their school newspaper, Viking Saga, following an op-ed titled Pride and Prejudice, LGBTQIA+, was published. Senator Duggan's bill was introduced on January 8th and referred to the Judiciary Committee on January 10th. Reporting for News Channel Nebraska, this is Luke Stera.
Lawmakers yesterday announced that airports in Nebraska will receive over $15 million worth of federal funds to support airport infrastructure. Omaha's Epley Airfield getting the biggest infusion of cash, getting $5.3 million. North Platte's Lee Bird Field getting nearly $2.7 million, while Lincoln awarded just under $1.5 million. All told, a total of 21 different Nebraska airports are getting funding. Even in Rushville, they're getting the smallest amount in the latest round of funding at $48,000. Well, if you can't afford your rent, you're in good company. According to Harvard University, half of all renters in the U.S. are paying more in rent than they should. That's defined as rent using up more than 30% of your income. The good news is rent is actually coming down in most of the country. The median asking rent just above $1,700. That's down $63 from its peak in July of 2022. Now that's going to vary from city to city and from state to state. According to Zillow, the median rent in Nebraska just over $1,200. That's down from December, but virtually unchanged from last year. Colleges are getting some financial aid data from students late this year. That's because the Department of Education revamped the free application for federal student aid last year. It had to be updated again earlier this month to include inflation data. That freed up an additional $1.8 billion in financial aid, but it also delayed processing. The Department of Education has told colleges don't expect data until the first half of March. But that's usually when students are used to hearing a decision on their aid. It's likely that's going to be delayed this year, even though most schools will still require students to commit to them by May 1st. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says measures of respiratory virus activity have been going down for a few weeks, but they're still elevated across most of the U.S. The CDC says they're continuing to watch for a post-holiday surge. More than 4% of all visits to healthcare providers were for respiratory illnesses during the week ending January 20th. That's down almost 7% from 3 weeks earlier.